Welcome and thank you for joining us in our first presentation as part of our newly launched My de Jonge Read. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Hank de Jonge. My de Jonge Read is a bit of a special club. It's designed exclusively for our past clients. It's designed for our past clients to help them expand their knowledge and improve their businesses with ideas and suggestions from a group of highly qualified mentors and presenters on a host of thought-provoking subjects. Now, you're here today as you've accepted membership, and now from now onwards, each month, you'll receive an invitation to attend one of these webinars on a different topic each time. And we welcome you to join us to expand your knowledge. Expand your knowledge bank and to make you stronger and more robust in your business moving forward. Second. Now, as most of you are aware, the reason for the establishment of the de Jonge Read business 15 or 16 years ago was based on my personal experiences on having to navigate the insolvency framework without any support or guidance. Now, this was probably the most scary and depressing experience in my life. The effects that living through this sort of, without a doubt, impacted me vastly. Now, since recommencing my business life, I've relied heavily on seeking advice and direction from quality mentors and advisors. Now, this has helped enormously in the success of the de Jonge Read business and my personal development. And I still seek and obtain this advice on a daily basis. I recommend to all of you that you do the same in your business and personal lives and in your future journey. Now, approximately 10 years ago, I crossed paths with Mr. Steve Clark. Now, I attended many a session where he's presented, and I thoroughly enjoyed all of these presentations. Now, I remember a presentation of Steve's quite a few years ago where he discussed his top 10 tips for simplification. Now, I still review these top 10 tips of Steve's on a weekly basis. Now, these top tips of Steve's are simple, and you probably know all of them. But we often forget this type of simple, basic stuff that makes an enormous difference in our businesses. So people like Steve are imperative for us in our business to help keep us on track. So what's Steve's background? What makes him tick? Over the past 20 years, Steve has been assisting companies to grow and improve through a combination of coaching, consulting, and training strategies. Now, prior to that, Steve worked overseas in a number of finance and accounting and HR related roles. Now, Steve's book, Fridays Off, is a soon to be published account of one company's journey towards building a saleable business asset. So let's sit back now and enjoy today's webinar from Steve on post-COVID-19 business success strategies. Over to you, Steve.
All right, thank you, Hank, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to your members today of the club. And that's I didn't actually know that it was a club, and congratulations for doing that. Thank you to the attendees for tuning in this morning on what's going to be hopefully an interesting discussion, post-COVID business strategies. It's the first time I've actually spoken about this, because how could you anyway, because it's just so new upon us. My focus today is really going to be around focus at the business owner and the business, as opposed to the individual and particular careers that people might have. I know that they're very important. The focus is going to be very much on the business. The information is going to be drawn from my online research I've done from listening to experts, and I say that in inverted commas a little bit because there are a lot of experts out there now, but how do we really know? And through my peers, my business associates and colleagues. I think it goes without saying that this COVID-19 pandemic is the biggest interruption that's happened in our lifetimes to date. I was talking to some colleagues recently about the 2008 financial crisis, and they said, yes, that was bad and we're still finding some impacts, but this is just all pervasive on our lives because it threatens that very existence, our life. The challenge is that we've really done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong to deserve this tsunami of challenges facing us today. And like you, probably you would know that there's been a big mixed impact on different industries. We know that our colleagues in tourism, hospitality, and sales have been impacted significantly. Retail, I meant to say, been impacted significantly. And of course, it's been regional. It's been like our colleagues in Melbourne right now, Victoria, doing it so tough, as we all know. And myself, like probably everybody out there, including yourself, we're second guessing on how long it's going to take to get out of this crisis into the new world of business and life. And so part of a key motivation for this talk today is to get you to think about, what are our options? What can we do that actually makes sense and has some practicality about it? No doubt this pandemic is causing us to draw more heavily on our reserves of survival, resilience, and adaptability than we've ever had to in the past. And I think most of the experts are saying this is going to continue into the future. You probably don't need to be an expert to sort of realize that. So again, my motivation is to put some suggestions to you, some ideas, let you know what the thinking is, but to also say that there's no definitive answer in this. There's no magic formula, but as we will explain, that doesn't mean to say we do nothing. There are some things that we can do. So let's have a look and move to our agenda today. We're going to talk about six areas. We're going to talk about the 4 fundamental questions to be posed in terms of how you decide what your approach might be. We're going to look at what are some of the challenges are and whether there's any opportunities that might emerge from those challenges. Can we sift some gold from the mud? What the opportunities are, the challenges, the opportunities, what we know with some surety. We're going to talk about 10 trends. And when we're doing that, I'd ask you to think about those trends and how they might be impacting on you right now, and they might going forward. Then we're going to talk about the 4 stages of the COVID business strategy, and we're in 2 stages at the moment. I'll explain that. Then we're going to finish off and talk about 6 potential strategy solutions. And when we're talking about those, I want you to think about those in three ways in terms of their practicability. Are they workable? The probability, do they have a good chance of being successful if implemented? And the impact, will they actually give me the impact that I'm looking for? So these 4 questions, let's examine them in a little bit more detail. The first one is, what immediate impacts is COVID having on our ability to do 5 things in particular? Stay open for business, produce our goods and services, service our marketplace, remain competitive, remain profitable, and keep our people safe and on board. So in terms of staying open for business, making sure that our cash flow is maintained, is protected, we gain access to the funding that's available, looking after the health and welfare of our people, which has always been important but now elevated, and getting supply chain access. Like a lot of businesses that I know have been, hampered by product in particular, maybe coming out of China, not available, different countries as well. In terms of servicing our marketplace, making sure that we have the ability to produce and distribute our goods and services. And importantly, are our customers open for business? And are their customers open for business? I want to talk about that a little bit more in terms of customer strategies. Remaining competitive. I think there's an opportunity to get to know our customer at a far deeper level than we have in the past. When I talk to people about customer service, I get quite often very straightforward responses, and they think that just supplying someone with a product and service and maybe checking in every now and then is okay. I'm suggesting that maybe there's an opportunity to elevate the touch points that we have with our customers, the understanding we have of our customers, and to actually service them at a higher level during these challenging times. Now, that should happen anyway, but I think these times have accelerated the need for us to do that. Remaining profitable in terms of always an issue, but in terms of looking at our cost and our overhead control, making sure that the payroll matches the work that we've got. I know a number of companies have negotiated with their team where if they've only 30 hours a week at the moment, then that's all they work and that's all they're paid. I know that has to be done through Fair Work Australia, quite understand that. But perhaps cancelling non-essential services for a while. People have been renegotiating rents. People have been getting out of rental agreements and because due to working from home. And keeping our people safe and on board. Cleanliness in the workplace. I think we've all experienced the increased rigor around that when we go to restaurants and in places of work as well. And then importantly, understanding the work-life pressures. You know, we have our people working from home and we think, well, that's great. But yes, that raises other issues as well because there's often children at home, there's partners at home. And sometimes we miss just that community that comes from working with our colleagues. So what steps have we taken? It's a question to be asked. What stance should we adopt? So we could do two things in a way, two main strategies. We could have like a wait and see strategy. So we could actually let the government do the heavy lifting, let the government lead the way. We could wait for particular industry response and see the way the industry's rolling. We could wait for our competitors' response, or we could wait and see what our customers are doing and respond, what they do and want, and respond accordingly. So a wait and see attitude. Or we could be proactive and move ahead of the marketplace or anticipation of where it's heading. I'm in favour of a balance of those two, but I'm also probably leaning towards at least being proactive. And I'll talk more about that when we talk about planning shortly. The future impacts that can be envisaged. Again, when we're looking to the future and deciding what to do, because the information in terms of what we can do with certainty is a bit remote, we have to decide whether we trust the experts and who are these experts, how do we find them. So one, we could look at what the experts are doing and move with them, or we could wait for the triggers. So we actually look for a trigger and says, yes, I need a sign to know that the economy is moving on, or my customers have got more confidence, or the government's put something into place, or a vaccine's on the horizon. Or third is we could wait till the coast is completely clear and we arrive at the new world of work and just move at that particular time. I guess it depends on your risk profile, what you might do. But I think what should be done now and how should it be implemented? Probably it goes without saying that, that if I'm a consultant and coach, then I'm a fan of planning, because planning is just really thoughtful action and decisions under some form of certainty and uncertainty. So I'm a great believer, even in these challenging times, of planning, doing some multiple scenario planning. Even when I'm working with clients doing business planning now, we often have 2 or 3 business plans or 2 or 3 budgets, one which might be just a base budget and then an extended budget based on different scenarios. What if this happens? Then we're going to do that. What if this happens? Even though that's complicated to some extent, we recommend that it's worthwhile doing and you should consider it. I'm going to move now to what some of the challenges are that make our decisions now more complex. And one is that we're living with unprecedented complexity right now in terms of this virus and its impact. It's not a straight line solution. It's not an A plus B equals C solution. It's a complicated equation. I forget what those complicated equations are called back at school, but I found them very hard to do anyway. So we're dealing with a lot of complexity. The virus, is it mutating? Why is it affecting some people and not others? So there's lots of questions that we have about our ability to come out of this pandemic, which makes planning more difficult. Which comes back to the second point of crystal ball gazing. There are a lot of people guessing what is going to happen and what could happen, and if you have enough guesses, I guess you're going to be right at some point in time. But it's difficult, and planning under uncertainty is never that easy. The other thing I'll say is, I mean, just going back to that previous point, in terms of what's happened in the past, we've had disasters in the past, going back to the 1918 Spanish flu, and we've had Ebola, we've had SARS, we've had the 2008 financial crisis. But it seems that hasn't really prepared us that well for what we're going through right now. So there's not a real lot of wisdom at the moment that I can see. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm going and reading what other experts are saying as well. It comes back to this point about the real expert. Will the real expert please stand up? Everyone has an opinion. Who do we trust? It's a little bit like the climate change debate. You have very, very smart people on the one hand say that climate change is not, global warming is not caused by climate change. On the other hand, you have equally smart people saying the opposite. So it's very difficult for us, lay people, to actually know who do we actually trust. We also need to adopt what I'm calling a microscope and a telescope view on what's happening right now. The microscope means that we have to deal with the day-to-day. Can I keep the doors open? Can I pay my wages? Are my staff going to be, fit and healthy? So we need that microscope on what's happening today, that micro view, but we also need a telescope view as business owners to say, well, what does the future landscape look like? When do I start looking out there with some confidence, and how do I move to that sort of position going forward? That's why I said before, we need to be very adaptable, nimble, and be ready for things to happen very quickly in this environment. Another big challenge, of course, we know is with political instability. We have US-China relations at a pretty poor state at the moment. We have US blaming China for the pandemic. Won't get into that, but, we have a lot of name calling backwards and forwards. We have government debt levels. Somebody has to pay for all of our funding that we're providing to people who are not able to work. Somebody has to pay for that eventually. We have border protection, both at a national level and a state level, as we're seeing right now in our own Queensland case. And we have closed market places. So we definitely have some challenges. But out of challenges, like all things, probably come some opportunities. Like in the 2008 financial crisis, some very clever investors made a lot of money, but they were few and far between, and you needed to have the money to be able to buy, even if the stocks were down at that point in time. But some of the opportunities that we're seeing already come out are in the healthcare, aged and related services area, mass disease testing technologies, the preventative healthcare marketplace, digital collaboration tools, affordable working from home setups, cybersecurity, and remote education. Now, you're probably thinking, well, okay, those industries are not that I'm in, and I can't see myself moving into those particular industries, so they're not opportunities for me. But the real question is, what could be? And to do that, you need to be patient and observant and be prepared to move quickly when those opportunities arise. What do we know with sort of some level of certainty? Here's 10 trends that I want to quickly talk about and provide a couple of examples under each. And of course, when you're looking at them, should be thinking, you know, how are they impacting on me at the moment? What have I done what have I done so far? Do I need to do some more? So those are sort of questions you should be thinking about. But I think the main thing is that the old way of working is no longer going to be an option. I think most people accept that. We're just not sure what it will actually look like. So what we need, if we don't know what things will look like, we have to think about what we do know with some surety and see how we respond to that. So the first thing is the reinvented workplace, including remote work and teams. The mobile office is here to stay in some way, shape or form. I think most people agree that that's the case. Even if we completely are COVID free, there will be some working from home opportunities, and that's probably going to be a good thing. If any of us have witnessed the traffic on the road in the morning going into the city, I think we can all agree with that. I've called it projects and gig work. Might be something that happens a lot more in the future, where we have a project and we get people from within our company, employees, some contractors, and maybe people from outside of our company or different companies to come together to solve a problem and then dissolve and go across and do something else. Digital transformation, including artificial intelligence, well, that has been obviously around for some time anyway, but we see that accelerating. We see the rise of the bots and the robots continuing into the future. Even though I'm for the humans, I think that's something that's going to be just happen, and we have to adapt to that and get the best out of that. I put it down, hardwire the routine. So I think that anything that's a routine, it's a systematic, simple process, multiple tasks. If that can be systemized into a software solution and tools, you're going to see more and more of that. Number one in particular, I encourage you all to have a good look at, which is getting closer to your customer than you ever have before. Otherwise, someone like a low-cost maverick will. I think we're going to see a little bit of this come out of the COVID, new entries into the marketplace. So look at your customer in terms of a partner in the success of your business. In other words, if, you know, it's allied, it's a dotted line, it's a firm dotted line. If they are doing well and their customers or your customers are doing well, then you're likely to be doing well. So understanding those interconnections, getting to know your customers a lot more in terms of their touch points, feeling their pain. That means asking a different set of questions. It doesn't mean moving in next door and living to them and being too intrusive, but it does mean being more empathetic, being more understanding, and learning the business model of your customer. And I think it means raising the bar on customer service as well. I think a lot of customer service is barely minimal customer service. So think a lot more about that. Number 4 is a trend that we're seeing, which is moving towards more socially responsible organisations. They've been talking about that for a long time, and I think it's had mixed responses. At a corporate level, it's generally been a lot better than maybe in the medium SME to medium-sized organisations, but that's changing, I think, with COVID and how we're having to look at our responsibility as business owners to our employees, to the environment, to the country. I think more of that will continue, which might present some opportunities as well. I think the world is watching in terms of how businesses we respond to this particular crisis. Global sourcing of labour to reduce costs. Offshore resourcing has been around for some time now. Places like India, the Philippines, quite popular. But here's a scary fact. Scary fact is that somewhere else in the world can do your job at 25% of the cost. What does that mean to us? That means that we need to be more productive, more innovative, add more value in what we're doing. We need to be conscious of that can actually happen. And in fact, as people are now focusing more on cost control, you find that people start looking a little bit harder. Is that something that you need to do? Shoring up the supply chains, as I mentioned before. What has this crisis taught us about supply? Is China the answer going forward? A lot of products came out of China, as we well know, but they've had their challenges. Will buy local have a more appealing ring going forward? I don't know. You know, I sort of was very dismayed at the demise of people like Dick Smith and what he tried to do locally, just couldn't compete. Will we be a little bit more nationalistic in that regard? I don't know. Be interesting to see what everybody thinks. Should we diversify our supply chains at the risk of increased prices? And should we spread it around due to getting more continuity of supply? Maybe the costs go up. Can we pass them on? Questions to be asked. I think being an agility and flexibility are words that we have seen, but we're seeing a lot more of it now. We need to be, our ability to change, adapt and pivot our business models going forward is going to be more relevant than it has been. So that means a new set of skills in how you actually do that. And we need to learn those skills. Number 8, the high focus on workplace cleanliness and safety. We're seeing that. I don't need probably to go on too much more about that other than we know that it's going to stay with us, or we're pretty confident it will. And we have to just adapt and do what we need to do in our workplaces. It's closely linked to number 9, which is the focus on employee safety, wellness and resilience. We've always had goals to look after our employees, but the safety, wellness and resilience part was there, but now it's more elevated. So with particularly things like, you know, mental health in the workplace is such a huge issue. It's testing a lot of people's mental ability to cope right now with, you know, because we've been through so many disasters when you think about it in Australia, now to be hit with this. So it's testing our ability to recover well, and there's various strategies around for that, which I don't have the time to go into. But if you're interested, and you probably know what they are, things like mindfulness and a whole lot of other things, and you should have a look at that. And lastly, the social distancing and travel. We think that that's probably going to continue into the future, because our challenge will also be, is there another virus around the corner that we don't know of in some part of the world? So I think that we need to be, you know, vigilant in that respect. Let's move on and have a look at the 4 stages, quickly, the 4 stages of the COVID business strategy. Survive, pivot, emerge and thrive. Survive is where we are most now. Most of us are right now, keeping our doors open, keeping our cash flow going, surviving. Pivoting is where we're adjusting our business model to suit. Do we need to change what we're doing in some way, shape or form going forward? Will that change be minor, or does it need to be fundamental at a structural level? So businesses are thinking about that, but we're probably still in the survival because we're wondering when this is going to finish. So the other 2 stages of emerging, where we can see the bright light at the end of the tunnel, I don't think the bright light is there yet. It's early days. And then thrive, back to the new normal, whatever that new normal is, and that's early days as well. Right, so let's move on to what should a business owner be doing to prepare for the future. And I'm going to be talking about here about being conscious of the opening 4 questions, including the 10 trends. Remember, I asked the 4 questions at the beginning in the trends, and do some scenario planning. In terms of scenario planning is probably a clever way of just saying, let's look at some potential for our business going forward using different probabilities, different scenarios. But here are 7 questions that might help you determine what your viable options are. These questions aren't in the notes, and if anybody wants them, we can get them through de Jonge Read, but just maybe listen to them, because at the end, I'm going to sum up and say, I'm going to talk about the fact that a lot of the answers, unfortunately, are still challenging for us today, but the questions that we ask ourselves in terms of how to respond are fundamental. Here's some fundamental questions. 7. If we're going to listen to an expert in terms of our strategy, who might that be? Who might that person or persons be? If there's one country that's taking more, is there one country taking more of a leadership, trusted leadership role where we can look at what they're doing and plan our strategy accordingly? How would we rate the various trends in terms of impact one way or the other on our business model? What are those trends suggesting that we could adopt without significant disruption to our business model? What are they saying that, if true, would mean a significant change to our business model? Lastly, last two, what are our competitors doing? What are our customers likely demanding that we do? So the second thing that I would say is you should be stress testing your current business model to see if there is a fundamental underlying problem. In other words, if COVID was not here, would you still be struggling? Is there something fundamental in the way that you generate business? You manage your cash flow, you manage your staff, you manage your overheads, you manage your strategy to the marketplace. So I think that it will be relevant for a number of businesses, not all, to go back and do a pretty significant health check on the state of their business, like right now, even minus the COVID threats. It's a nice time to do it because we have COVID, and when we're coming out of COVID in terms of looking forward, we're going to ask ourselves the question, what does our new business model need to look like? Need to be intensely curious and innovative in your thinking. This is this nimbleness. This is the ability to move quickly and pivot into an opportunity area when it arises. So somebody in your business needs to have their ear to the ground, doing this research, etc. Or maybe more than one person. Look for strategic partnering opportunities. I think that there are opportunities to perhaps pitch for work with some of the people in your networks that perhaps deliver a similar solution to a client where you can be a link in the chain of that solution. The power of the networks, I think, has always been important, but going forward is going to be more important. For example, you could offer a combined service offering. Like if you're an accountant, you might be able to offer financial planning, or you could be an electrician, you could be offering audio visual. So I think this is a good opportunity to look at the people in your network that are around you, what the strength of your relationship is, how you could actually get together, if you could get together to deliver and support each other in this post-COVID strategy. Also be conscious of the social trends in terms of being more health and safety conscious, perhaps being more socially responsible, perhaps in terms of buying local, and see whether there's an opportunity for you there. The last one is really to ask the question, but to study regions that are responding more effectively to the crisis, and then move quickly in your own marketplace. So where is the thought and action leadership coming from? Personally, at the moment, I don't exactly know, but I tell you what, from doing research on this, I'm certainly going to keep my ear to the ground and my eyes to the Google and the website and see what different people are doing. Who is ahead of their game in terms of the thinking and action? And I want to leave you with one final thought, and that is you probably got from the discussion here today that the difficulty of getting definitive answers right now is not easy. That's a bit of an unknown. There are some known unknowns, but what can we do with that information, and how does it practically get our way into some strategy for us. But the quality of the questions that you ask yourself in how you respond to this pandemic and come out the other end, those are within your control. So my suggestion would be that you get together with your team, management team, your advisors, your board, your accountant, and have a planning session, maybe using some of the input that's in this presentation to decide what your response could be, what it should be, and importantly, what are the triggers that maybe alert you to the fact that, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. Of course, the option is to do nothing and just wait, and that is an option. That is a plan. That is an option for you. It's not one that I would probably recommend, being a bit of a planner, even under uncertainty. So that's probably the final thought I'd like to leave you with, that there's still a lot of unknowns, and I hope that this has stimulated you to perhaps at least do what I've just suggested and look at what you do have within your control and do something about that, if in fact you're in one of those industries, and most of us probably are, that have to. Okay, thank you for your time this morning. To you, Hank.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks very much for your presentation today. I'm sure we all found the first My de Jonge Read webinar useful. Tips that it's just such a unique situation that we're in at the moment, and we're all in it together. So these tips are so important to keep in mind right now as we all prepare and plan for this life post COVID. Look, if anyone wants to talk with Steve one-on-one, by all means, just drop us a line at de Jonge Read, and we can give you some contact details. The future webinar topics that we're going to have include topics like mindfulness, motivation, best HR practices, cash flow planning, social media marketing, and how to improve your credit score, along with staff performance and happiness. We look forward to seeing you again soon, and we hope that you can take away something from today's presentation. Thank you.